All right, so for the second part of section 7, we're going to need to use a process called completing the square. Now, unfortunately, this was a concept that would have been gone over toward the end of last year in Algebra 1, but school year ended and kind of didn't have to do anything unless you wanted to try to raise your grade. So this will be brand new for everybody. So this is our general form of a quadratic, x squared, a, b, and c are just numbers. So here's the process to complete the square, and when I get to a certain point in the process, I will point out kind of where we need to go with this. But we're going to do the whole thing just because you haven't got it before. So I'm going to do a problem side by side with the steps kind of as we go. It's kind of confusing at the beginning, I think, just because it's brand new. But if you try it and get used to it, this is actually a pretty good way to solve these problems. But okay, so step 1, move the c term to the right or to the other side of the equal sign. Okay, so that's minus 12. I need to do the opposite and add 12. When you do that, leave a space. You'll see why like in a minute. Step 2, divide by a term if possible. So if possible means if there's an a term. So in this one, there's no number in front of the x squared, so there's no a term. Okay, here comes kind of one of the most important like steps. Do half of b then do half of b, square it, and add to both sides. So this one's kind of unique in that, like, what's half of 4? 2. What's 2 squared? 4. So it doesn't always come back to like the same number as b, but then we're going to add that to both sides. So kind of up here, I did half of b, which is 4. Then I did to the second power, and we're kind of back to 4. The next example I do won't go back to the 4. So, okay. Factor the left side. Now here's the nice thing about why we want that blue 4 to be there. When we factor the left side, do the square root of c. Well, the square root of c is square root of 4 is 2. So we're going to have x plus 2, x plus 2, or x plus 2 squared. And then I can add those two together. 12 and 4 is 16. Okay, so that will always happen. The reason that we do this step 3, do half of b squared, add it to both sides, is to create a situation where what times what is 4 that adds up to 4, 2 and 2. So you just do the square root of that new c number that you put in there, you're going to get the numbers that you need. So if that was a 9, square root of 9 is 3, and it would be either x plus 3, or x minus 3, x minus 3. So it does depend on that middle x, the b term. If it's positive, we do plus plus. If it's negative, we do minus minus. And so this x plus 2 squared, that should look familiar in terms of part of the equation of a circle. So that's kind of what we're after when we're doing these problems. All right, now we are going to complete the process because I think it's important for you to, this is something that will come up down the road mathematically. Square root both sides. So if I do like that, square root and squared will always just cancel each other out. And then here's another kind of like, what's the square root of 16? Guarantee like a whole bunch of you just thought of 4. It's actually positive and negative 4. Because if you think about what's a square root, well, a number times itself. Okay, well, 4 times 4 is 16, but so is negative 4 times negative 4. So when we do solving, something equals 0 means we're solving, then we need to do the positive and negative when we do a square root. If we're not solving, it's okay to just put the 4. And then the last step is to just solve for x. So there's kind of two problems here. We need to, when we go to solve, we would do minus 2 to both sides. But we have positive and negative 4, so we'd want to do like positive 4 minus 2 and negative 4 minus 2. So positive 4 minus 2 would be positive 2, and negative 4 and negative 2 would be negative 6. Okay, so you're going to need to write this. I would write down this step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 somewhere. So as you do these problems, you're able to have kind of the process there like next to you to guide you along, because it's going to take a little bit to get used to it. Do the square root of the c part on step number 4. Where there is a square root, when you do the yellow up here, the square root of 16 is 4. Then just keep going. You'll be able to add or subtract those two together like no problem. Okay, so let's look at another one. Now let me do minus. Okay, so the first step was to move the c. And then remember to leave that space because that's going to be where our next part goes. Divide by a, there's no a. Step 3, do half of b, half of 8. Don't worry about if it's positive or negative. Just pretend, kind of ignore the fact that it's negative. Half of 8 is 4. So let's see. Half of 8 is 4. Squared is 16. Add that to both sides. Okay. Then factor the left side. And so I said square root of 16 is 4. So I'm going to do on this one it's going to be x minus 4, x minus 4, or just x minus 4 squared. It's minus on this one because that 8 is minus. So that's really the only thing that it's there for. Like the b part, or the sign for the b part, is the only part that it's used for is when we do the factoring. All right, then it said square root both sides. And I get, remember the squaring and square root just cancel each other out. And this one doesn't have a square root. So the last step is to solve for x. Well, I can't combine that together, so I would just write 4 plus or minus, I always put the number in the front, square root of 26. Now, it's going to ask you to go to the nearest tenth, I think. So get your calculator. Excuse me, it might say hundredth, I'm not sure, but, and so just, you're going to type that in. 4 plus square root 26, and I get 9.09, and I'm going to do 4 minus square root 26, and I get negative 1.09. They both kind of round off to like 0.1, so if you put 9.1 and negative 1.1, that's totally fine also. I don't remember what the worksheet says like to do. Okay, so some of them will work out like the previous one, and then some of them won't have a square root like this one. Okay. Well, let's do one more. Okay, so move the C. Divide by A, so this one actually has an A, so you need to divide on all of them. All right, do half the B term, half of 10 is 5, squared is 25, add it to both sides. Okay, then factor, square root of 25 is 5. So x plus 5 squared, and then negative 5 plus 25 is positive 20. Square root. Can't do the square root of 20. And subtract the 5 over. So we get negative 5 plus or minus square root of 20. So same thing, just type it into your calculator. Negative 5 plus square root 20, negative 0.53, and negative 5 minus square root 20, negative 9.47. Okay, so when I looked at your work on the ones that there's like half and half work out to be whole numbers versus decimals. So on your assignment, it's kind of broken down into stages, if you will. So the first couple of problems, you're just trying to figure out what's this number to add to both sides. It'll say like, what number is for C, that makes it a perfect square or something like that. But the first couple, you're not going like all the way to the very end. And then I think there's actually one that says like, what's the factor, kind of thing. So it would be like this part as the actual answer. So the first few problems, you're not going to do the whole process. And then after the first few, then you'll continue the whole process. Okay, so we're going to need to use this specifically for that last part that I circled, that x minus 4, x plus 5. That's part of like the center of a circle. And that's what we're going to need to use it for on Monday. Okay? All right, so there's kind of your algebra intro that we're going to need to use for the next part of section 7. Okay, have a good weekend, guys. We'll see you Monday.